If you love thrilling mysteries, step into the unknown. Join the hunt, uncover the secrets, and feel the suspense. Don't forget to hit subscribe, and be part of the VeeQuest journey. The rain came in thin, silvery threads as Elena Morris stepped off the bus and into the quiet town of Eldenwood. Her suitcase splashed against the wet cobblestones, echoing faintly in the distance. The air smelled of pine and old wood smoke, and something else, something faintly metallic that she couldn't quite place. Elena was a historian by profession, a writer by passion. Her latest project had brought her here, to document and photograph Ravenhurst Manor, a grand but decaying estate hidden deep within Eldenwood Forest. The locals had warned her about the house, speaking in low voices and half glances. They called it, the place that listens. At first, Elena had brushed off their words as rural superstition. Every small town had its haunted stories, after all. But as the taxi rolled through the narrow lanes and the manor appeared at the horizon, her skepticism began to waver. Ravenhurst stood like a relic from another century, tall, gray, and stubborn against time. Its towers were cracked, its windows fogged, and ivy crept like veins along the stone walls. As they approached, a gust of wind blew through the trees, and Elena swore she heard a faint whisper, soft, like someone sighing her name. "Did you hear that?" she asked the driver. He didn't turn around. "No, ma'am," he muttered, gripping the wheel tighter. "And even if I did, I wouldn't want to." The car stopped at the wrought iron gate. A weathered sign hung from it, reading Ravenhurst, "Keep out." The driver refused to go farther. "You'll find the caretaker inside," he said quickly. "Best you don't wander after dark." Elena smiled politely, paid him, and watched the car speed away into the rain. Then, with a deep breath, she pushed open the creaking gate and stepped into the overgrown garden. The house loomed above her, silent, watching. Inside, the air was thick with the smell of dust and forgotten years. Her footsteps echoed through the grand hall, where faded portraits stared down with hollow eyes. A grand staircase rose before her, its carpet threadbare and torn. She called out, "Hello. Mr. Hobbins." From the far end of the corridor, an elderly man emerged, thin, pale, with eyes like cracked glass. "You must be Miss Morris," he said in a rasping voice. "I'm Hobbins, the caretaker. You'll be staying in the east wing. The generator's weak, so keep a candle nearby." He handed her a heavy brass key attached to a tag marked Room 3. His hand lingered for a moment, as if he wanted to say more but couldn't. Finally, he added, "One more thing, the west hallway is off limits after midnight." Elena tilted her head. "Why's that?" He hesitated. "Because that's where the door is. And the door whispers." She chuckled nervously. "A local ghost story, I assume." Mr. Hobbins didn't laugh. "Just promise me you'll stay away after 12. That night, as the storm intensified, Elena unpacked her things and set up her laptop to take notes. The wind howled through the cracks, and the rain tapped against the glass like impatient fingers. Midnight crept closer. She tried to ignore the uneasy feeling that the walls were listening. Somewhere in the distance, a clock struck 12, slow, deliberate chimes that seemed to echo forever. Then she heard it. A whisper. Faint, fragile, but real. "Elena." She froze. The sound had come from the hallway. Heart pounding, she lit her candle and stepped outside her room. The flame flickered violently, stretching toward the far end of the corridor, the west hallway. "Elena." The whisper again, this time closer. It sounded human, desperate. She followed the sound slowly, her bare feet silent on the cold floor. The hallway grew darker with every step. At the very end stood an old, arched wooden door, the one Hobbins had warned her about. Its surface was carved with strange, swirling patterns that almost looked like faces twisted in pain. "Elena." The voice now came from directly behind the door. She pressed her palm against it, cold as ice. Her breath trembled. "Who's there?" she whispered. No answer. Just silence. Then, 3 slow, deliberate knocks from the other side. She stumbled back, heart racing. The candle flickered out, plunging her into darkness. And in that darkness, the whisper came one last time, clearer than before, almost inside her ear. Elena barely slept that night. The whisper still echoed in her mind, twisting between dream and memory. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw that door. Its carvings seemed to pulse and shift in the candlelight, as if alive. When morning came, she forced herself out of bed and tried to convince her logical mind that it had all been her imagination. Long days, exhaustion, a new environment, of course she had heard something that wasn't there. But when she passed the west hallway on her way to breakfast, she stopped dead in her tracks. The door was slightly open. She was sure she had left it closed the night before. A faint smell drifted out, a mix of damp earth and something metallic, like old blood. She felt an invisible pull toward it, but before she could step closer, Mr. Hobbins appeared behind her. His voice cracked like thunder in the silence. "Don't go near it." Elena jumped, clutching her chest. "You scared me. I thought I heard something." "You did," he said grimly, moving to shut the door. "It's best not to answer when it calls." She frowned. "You make it sound like it's alive." He didn't reply. Instead, he locked the door with an old iron key and walked away without another word. The day dragged on in eerie stillness. Elena wandered through the manor, notebook in hand, documenting the portraits, the architecture, the faded wallpaper that peeled like aging skin. But everywhere she went, she felt eyes on her, eyes that weren't there. In the library, she stumbled upon a massive wooden desk stacked with ledgers and journals. Dust rose in clouds as she brushed them off. Most were property records, dated back to the late 1800s. But one small, leather-bound book caught her eye. It was brittle, its pages yellowed with time. Inside the front cover was a name written in elegant ink. Amelia Wren. Elena's heart quickened. The Wrens were the family who had built Ravenhurst Manor. But no one in town had ever mentioned an Amelia. She flipped through the pages. Amelia's handwriting was delicate but unsteady. The entries grew darker as the years went on. Talks of whispers in the West Wing, of father's secret experiments, and voices trapped behind the mirror. The last page was written in a shaky scrawl. Greater than, father says the door must never be opened again. The voices are restless. They remember what he did. A chill rippled down Elena's spine. She read the line again and again. The voices remember what he did. What had Lord Wren done? That evening, as the sun dipped behind the forest and the manor's shadows grew long, Elena made a decision. She couldn't leave without knowing the truth. At precisely midnight, she returned to the west hallway. The air was colder than before, unnaturally so. Her breath came out in faint clouds, even though the house had no open windows. The forbidden door stood waiting at the end, its carvings glistening faintly, as if wet. She held up her candle. The patterns seemed to twist, faces screaming, mouths open wide in silent agony. Her hand trembled as she reached into her pocket and pulled out the brass key Hobbins had given her on her first day. To her shock, it fit perfectly into the door's lock. He must have known, she thought. As the key turned, the door groaned like a creature waking from sleep. A gust of icy wind rushed out, nearly blowing out her candle. The whispering began again, softer this time, but more insistent. "Elena, help us. Down here." Her pulse pounded in her ears. She pushed the door open and gasped. It wasn't a room beyond the door, it was a spiraling staircase leading downward into darkness. The walls were lined with faint handprints, smeared in black soot. The air was heavy, thick with centuries of silence. Each step she took creaked underfoot, echoing endlessly into the dark. The whispers followed, floating all around her like unseen breaths. At the bottom of the stairs, she reached a small stone chamber lit only by her flickering candlelight. There was a wooden chair in the center, chained to the floor. Rusted shackles hung from its arms. And directly in front of it stood a tall, cracked mirror, its surface veiled in dust. Elena moved closer, brushing her fingers across the glass. Her reflection looked pale, distorted. Then it moved. Her reflection smiled, though she hadn't. Elena stumbled backward, choking on her breath. The reflection whispered in her voice, "You shouldn't have opened the door." Her candle sputtered out, plunging her into darkness. The last thing she saw was her reflection's eyes glowing faintly within the broken mirror. Elena stood frozen in the dark, her lungs burning as the cold air wrapped around her like invisible hands. The whispering had changed now, no longer pleading, but chanting. Faint voices rose and fell in rhythmic murmurs, echoing from the walls. The mirror glowed with a faint, silvery shimmer. Her reflection stared back at her, lips curling into a slow, knowing smile. "You found us, finally," it said. Elena's heart pounded so hard it hurt. She backed away, stumbling into the old wooden chair. The chains clattered against the floor, the metallic sound echoing up the staircase. "Who are you?" she managed to whisper. The reflection tilted its head. "Not who, what? We are the forgotten. The bound. The ones your bloodline left behind." "My bloodline," she repeated, confused. The mirror flickered. Images flashed across its cracked surface, blurred visions of a man in Victorian clothing, tall and severe, standing before the very same mirror. Around him, frightened villagers were tied to the chair. He chanted something, his eyes wild with power. The man's name echoed through the whispers. "Lord Wren." Elena's knees weakened. "No, he's not my bloodline. I'm just a historian." The reflection smiled wider. A historian named Elena Morris, born to Margaret Morris, whose maiden name was Wren. Elena's breath caught. She had never known much about her mother's side of the family. Her mother had died when she was little. But now, the truth burned inside her like ice. She was a descendant of the Wrens. And she had returned to Ravenhurst, because the house had called her. The whispers grew louder, overlapping until they became a single, desperate wail. The mirror trembled on its frame, and cracks raced across the glass like lightning. Through them, faint shapes began to appear, faces pressed against the inside of the mirror, ghostly and screaming. Elena stumbled backward, clutching her head. "What do you want from me?" she shouted. "Release," the voices moaned. "He trapped us here, and only his blood can set us free." The air thickened, the cold growing so sharp it bit into her skin. She opened Amelia Wren's journal. She'd brought it with her instinctively. Pages fluttered wildly as if caught in a storm. On the last page, beneath Amelia's warning, new words had appeared in faint, silvery ink. "Greater than, by name and light, set the bound free." Her candle had gone out, but she remembered the brass lantern she'd brought from her room. Her hands trembled as she lit it. The warm glow pushed back the darkness just enough for her to see the mirror clearly. She raised her voice, reciting the line aloud. "By name and light, set the bound free." The flames inside the lantern flared, turning white. The mirror screamed, 1,000 voices at once. Shards of glass exploded outward, swirling around her in a storm of silver dust. The light expanded, filling the chamber, swallowing everything in blinding radiance. And then, silence. When Elena opened her eyes, the air was still again. The mirror lay shattered across the floor. The handprints on the walls had faded. The whispering was gone. She climbed the stairs slowly, the lantern flickering weakly. The west hallway was quiet now, the door standing wide open as if relieved. For the first time since her arrival, the manor felt lighter, as though a terrible weight had lifted from its walls. At dawn, Elena packed her things and stepped out into the cold morning mist. Mr. Hobbins was waiting by the gate, his expression unreadable. "You're leaving early, Miss Morris," he said. She nodded. "It's done. The voices are gone." He looked at her sharply. "Gone." She hesitated. "At peace, I think." Mr. Hobbins sighed softly, eyes distant. "You've done what none of us could. The manor's been waiting a long time." As she turned to go, he called out again. "Miss Morris, did you happen to close the door before you left?" She frowned. "No. I thought you would." His face paled. Slowly, he looked past her shoulder. Elena turned around. The west hallway door, the one she had left open, was now shut tight. The faintest sound drifted through the cold air. A whisper. Soft. Familiar. Almost gentle. "Elena." Her lantern flickered once, and went out. That evening, long after she had left Eldenwood, a storm swept over Ravenhurst Manor once more. Inside the darkened house, the west hallway remained sealed. And if one listened closely, between the creaks of the old wooden beams and the sigh of the wind through the trees, one could still hear faint whispers behind the door. But this time, the whisper wasn't calling for help. It was calling her back.